Welcome back to the Marries Coaching Podcast, where we explore what it really takes to build a thriving coaching practice. Now, before we dive into today's episode, a big thank you to everyone who has already subscribed. Your support means the world to us. It is helping us to share gender intelligent coaching with more people around the globe. If you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button just below there. Today's episode is all about a tool that has changed the way we communicate, sell, and coach: the D.I.S.C personality profile. And to talk about it, I'm joined once again by Richard Bernstein, CEO of Marries Coaching, someone who has been using the D.I.S.C profiling for decades in sales, in coaching, and in leadership development. Rich, thank you for joining us. For anyone who's new to D.I.S.C, who's never heard of D.I.S.C, what is it actually? Where does it come from? Why is it such a powerful tool for coaches?
Back in the late 1800s, a guy named William Marston actually put this whole thing together. He was a psychologist, and he said that we all have a different profile. And I know that especially people in corporate, there's profiles like Myers-Briggs and, a whole bunch of corporate, and we used to do it in my old company where we would take these tests and then everybody would walk around the office saying, I'm a TMJI and I'm a this and I'm a that. But it wasn't practically used as a communication style on top of being a personality profile. So that's what we've done here at Mars Venus, is looked at how do the D's, the I, the S, and the C communicate, not just their personal profile, but that dictates their communication style. And what we have learned over the years is you can use that communication style where you communicate in their language, not in yours. So you're heard much clearer when you're using their language.
Right. You've changed the system so it's easier to apply for coaches.
Correct.
Okay, interesting. And I mean, you've been using the system for years in coaching, in team training, in
decades.
Sales.
More than just
Decades.
years.
Okay.
Yeah.
How does knowing someone's D.I.S.C profile help you communicate better? How does it help them?
Because right away, when you know the different types of people and what their profile is, the first thing you're going to do is to change, especially not just your languaging, but your body language, your tone of voice, your facial expressions. All of that is going to change so that you're communicating to them so they feel they can hear you better. Because remember, 78% of communication is nonverbal. So it's how you use your body language. D's and I's, their body language is very different from each other. And so if I know how to have my body language so that you hear me better and you see me with more confidence, you'll actually get the message better. You're more open to the learning, to the listening.
Okay. Let's dive into the D.I.S.C. What does it stand for?
Well, let me explain a little bit of foundational first.
Okay.
There are two types of people in the world. There are task-oriented people and there are people-oriented people. The task-oriented don't care so much about the feelings of others. They're more focused on their to-do list, on their, linear, take action, things like that. The people-oriented people don't care so much about the task. They care about how people feel and how they're doing, and I want to help you. And so those two types of people breaks the world into one category or another. So now, if you are a task-oriented person, however, you can do that in an outgoing way or in a quiet, reserved way. If you're people oriented, same thing. You can do that in a outgoing, extroverted way or a quiet, reserved way. So that splits the two types of people into four. Those that are task oriented in an outgoing way, those are the D's. They call them D for dominance. They're usually very dominant kind of people, demanding kind of people, because they don't care about the people, they care about the task, but they do it in a very outgoing way. If they're people oriented and they do it in an outgoing way, they're usually very fun loving. Those are the I's. Now, remember, however, D.I.S.C is on a scale. So you can be a high I or a medium I or a low I. But if that is your strength, then the higher you are on that scale, the more you are more fun loving. You love people. You love being an influencer, which is what the I stands for. You're people oriented, but in an outgoing way.
Right.
If you're
Right.
people oriented in a quiet, reserved way, you're an S. You're a steady, you're quiet and reserved, but you focus on people. And
Hmm.
if you're task oriented and you do it in a quiet, reserved way, you are now a C, which is very compliant. They like everything in order. They like working alone behind the computer or by themselves with spreadsheets. They're very task oriented, they're very detail oriented. Those
Hmm.
are the four categories.
And there would be a combination. So people would be D and I, or could people be D and S, like
Typically
dominant
not.
and
They're usually D and I because they're an outgoing
Mhm.
personality anyway, so they can be task oriented. My profile, I'm a very high D, and just a little bit under that is my I because
Mhm.
I'm still outgoing regardless of the circumstance, but I'm more focused on tasks than I am on people. In
Yeah.
fact, when I came to Mars Venus, I had to bring up my I a little bit and bring down my D a little bit because I came from corporate, and corporate doesn't care about the people and how you feel about things. So that was kind of my blind spot. So
Mhm.
they are very dynamic. You can adjust them if you do that consciously.
So you can train your type to suit a certain profession. Yeah.
Absolutely. I came from corporate, so my focus was always on task orientation, and I did it in an outgoing way. I wasn't talking about how do the people feel, what's their emotion right now. It wasn't pertinent to that role. But when I came to Mars Venus, I had to be a little bit, we're a people-oriented organization. All of our coaches are very close to each other, and so a lot of them are eyes, and I needed to be more sensitive to the people. I did that very consciously.
Mhm.
Bring
Okay.
down the D. I still got to get tasks, completed, but bring up the I a little bit so that I can connect with the team.
And since we talk about coaches, how is there an ideal personality type for a coach?
There is actually, and a
Mhm.
lot of people won't believe this, but it's the S.
The
It's the
S.
people oriented, but quiet and reserved.
Mhm.
Why? Because they're really good listeners. They're usually very patient, and that's what clients need. We've talked about that in other webinars where how important it is to be that empathetic and a good ear. Well, the S's are very good at that. So they're very quiet and reserved. They're good listeners. Look, they like influencing people. They like being at the party. They're just not the life of the party. They're leaning against the wall, observing everybody. That's
Interesting.
the S type, and they do make good coaches. Not that all the other three aren't good as well, but the best is an S. I read an article once, Helmut.
Mhm.
High level senior CEOs of companies typically are S's as well. They hire D's for them to, vice president of sales or chief operating officer, or, the C-suite itself, the CFO. Those are all, D's because they're very task oriented. But the CEO himself is usually a very good listener, steers the ship quietly, takes his time making decisions, talks softly. The other people are the doers.
We want to make this practical for our viewers. Are there particular exercises? For example, so if someone wants to become a coach, but they feel like they're not strong enough in their S aspect, what exercises can they do to strengthen that S aspect?
Well, the first thing, it's not the strengthening of the S. They are already an S. What they have to learn is the D, the I, and the C. So
Mm-hmm.
how would they communicate with the other three? And so D's, and like I said earlier, 78% of communication is nonverbal. So an S, when he's talking to a D, would have to lean forward. The body language is more forward. The direct, eye contact, the little bit more firmness of the voice. And that
Mm-hmm.
way a D would respect them more because they hear that body language is more assertive to them. Because S's typically tend to be, they're more reserved, they're introverted, and they think, okay, talking to a D when they're very forceful, if I talk in my language, the D is not going to be sold. He's not going to want to be coached by you because you're not assertive enough.
Makes sense. What
Mm.
about an I? How would you adapt as an S for an I?
Eyes are very interesting people. They want to be liked. That's the main thing. So
Mm-hmm.
eyes wanting to be liked, they like to do things the fun way. So they're always looking at having fun. They're not attention to detail. They're really focused on being the center of attention. Like I said before, they're not just at the party, they're the life of the party. They're in the middle of the party. They're dancing on the tables. And so an S would have to, bring out a little bit more assertiveness, but everything is under the umbrella of let's have fun. Eyes want to have fun.
And what about the C's?
The C's are very interesting also in that they are not people oriented, they're task oriented, but they're very reserved and quiet. So they like to do things, very attention to detail. Usually accountants, engineers, people like that are C's. So they in fact do want the details. When I'm coaching a C, or at least taking them through the sales process, I actually talk about every step we're going to take in coaching. First, we're going to do positioning. Then we're going to do an alignment. Then we're going to do a 90-day plan. Then we're going to start measuring where you were on a scale. And every week measuring the improvement. They love that. They're like, oh, I want those details. If I do that with an I, their eyes roll back in their head. But the C's, they want all the details.
Gotcha. What does a D need? Details? Does a D need fun? What does the D need apart from the strong voice?
The D needs the strong voice and the process we're going to follow. They don't necessarily, yes, they are task oriented, so you can give them the details, but you don't want to go so far into details. What they really want to know, a D, can you really hold me accountable? The only way I can show that is in my body language. I hate to be so strong, but with a D, I can say, sit down, shut up, let me show you how this thing works. And they go, oh, this is great. I love it. If I do that to an S, I would lose them like that. They'd run so fast. But D's want that firmness. They want to know that you can not only teach them, you can hold them accountable. Can't do that with an I, can't do that with an S.
The follow-up question to that would be, how do I recognize someone's personality type very easily, very quickly, within 5 minutes, without a test?
Within 30 seconds.
30 seconds, okay.
We have a game at Mars Venus. Whenever we're together, we look at the public and go, there's a D, there's an I, there's an S. We've mastered it so well. You can tell, first of all, a D by his body language. Most Ds are very assertive. They're very confident. They want to win. So they're usually dressed like a D. They walk like a D. They talk like a D. The minute they open their mouth, you can tell that assertiveness. The I's are more fun loving. You can tell if they're wearing a skirt or a dress or something that has flowers on it. They're usually very fun loving people. And so they have a big smile on their face. They're usually very flush in the face. So you can tell just by looking at them. And when they open their mouth, there's a big smile coming out of their mouth. It sounds like sunshine. Those are the I's of the world. The S's, you can always tell an introvert. They talk softly. They talk a little quietly. They usually lean back. When I'm talking to an S, I give them space. I lower my voice. I make it a lot less threatening. I slow down my languaging a little bit. So I'm not going, hey, let's get this done. I'm like, hey, let's get this done. So they appreciate that. I will connect with them better. It's softer. It feels better to them because I'm talking in their language. And my body language is giving them a lot more space. As I said with a D, I'm leaning forward. With an S, I'm leaning back. It is very interesting.
And the C, did we talk about the C?
The C, I'm usually attention to detail. I have to be well organized. Whatever I'm presenting to them has to be very well organized and very much in detail.
And how do you recognize them in a party?
They're talking about details. Their languaging is really important. They're actually saying, and I saw this and this and this and this, where the I is talking about how did they feel. The C's are talking about what did they see? What did they hear? Not how they're feeling. They don't connect with how they're feeling.
Okay. I do have another question though, because like this system was developed in the, when, 1800 something?
Late 1800s, right.
200 years ago.
Early 1917, something like that.
What would you tell someone who goes, hey, this system is outdated. There are more than 4 personality styles. It's too limited. It's outdated. What would you respond to that?
First of all, the reason I know it's not outdated is because it's been copied so many times in different contexts. There's one about birds. you know, the peacock as opposed to the, you know, crow as opposed to the American eagle. The eagle is the D. It's been done with fish. I've seen different types of fish. So it's being duplicated now in the 21st century. And yes, there probably are more styles that have been brought forth. But for our coaches, for all intents and purposes, is I want them to keep it simple. You're either task oriented or you're people oriented, and you do that in this way or this way. You either do it in an outgoing way or reserved way. I don't want to make it so complex that you can't implement it. Because in coaching, especially at Mars Venus, we're into using the tools. So it's very easy to teach. Here's another thing. We use it in our coaching sessions for our clients. Many times I'll have them take the test and then I'll show them the presentation because we have a presentation. They'll go, oh, no wonder. He's a D and she's an S. And she says, now I know why he's always yelling at me. He's not yelling at me. That's just his delivery. And he's thinking she's meek and mild. No, that's just her delivery. Same with the I. If you have an I and a C, I have clients right now, a husband and wife couple, that she's an I, very fun loving. They've been married for 80 years almost. They're very old people. And he's a C. He sits behind the computer all day. He does veterinarian analysis, you know, for animals. So he's very attention to detail. And she said, I can't get him to crack a smile. I don't know what's wrong with him. I go, let me tell you what's wrong with him. He's a C. There's no right or wrong. It's just whatever your personality is. So I'm teaching her to communicate more in a C language. I'm teaching him to communicate more in an I language, and their relationship is getting better.
So it's not just for work, it's also for relationships at home.
Oh, yeah.
Romantic relationships with your family, friends.
Friends and family, all relationships, and at work. Leaders need to know this. I can't tell you how many corporate I've gone into and presented this, and they go, our whole communication has changed. Our whole office is now harmonized because the D's are talking to the S's in their language, and the I's are talking to the C's in their language.
Is it possible that one person has all four aspects?
It is possible, and there's only two people I know like that literally are 50% D.I.S.C. One of them is our director of training, Summer Shoel in Saudi Arabia. She's a D.I.S.C, D-I-S-C, which is very rare personality type. And the other is John Gray.
John Gray.
John Gray is a D.I.S.C. Speak to anybody, from himself. He's not adjusting it for that person.
I love that, because I think at the end of the day, tools like D.I.S.C, they aren't just about business, they're also about relationships. And I guess relationships are everywhere, at home, at work. And when you understand people better, everything becomes easier, doesn't it?
Right.
Whether it's closing a deal or raising a family.
Exactly.
Thank you, Richard. This takes us to the end of this episode. If you found this helpful at home, make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. It really helps us grow and bring more conversations like this one. If you are interested in learning how to apply gender intelligence and DISC profiling in your own coaching practice, then check out the link in the description. We'll have a link there to book a call with one of our team at Mars Venus Coaching. And we're more than happy to tell you more about the Mars Venus Coach certification program. And I say thank you, Rich, for joining us. Thank you for joining us at home. And make sure you tune in again next week when the next video comes out.